help me reach 1,000 subscribers. Please like the video and share your thoughts on the video. Your feedback helps make the contents better. Now let's get to the story.
The shopping cart slipped from my hands and crashed into the display of canned tomatoes. I didn't care. I couldn't breathe. Because there she was, 20 feet away in the cereal aisle, reaching for a box of Lucky Charms, the same brand she always bought for Sunday breakfasts. Her hair was shorter now, dyed a shade darker, but I'd know that laugh anywhere. That same soft giggle she used to make when something amused her. My dead wife was standing in a grocery store, very much alive, talking to a man I'd never seen before. My name is Daniel Cooper. I'm 42 years old, a high school history teacher in a small town outside of Charlotte, North Carolina. 6 months ago, I buried my wife Sarah after what the police called a tragic hiking accident. We'd been married for 15 years, together for 17. She was my entire world, or so I thought. I spent those first 3 months in a fog so thick I could barely function. My principal gave me a leave of absence. My sister Rachel moved in because I had forgot to eat, forgot to shower, forgot that life was supposed to continue even when your heart had been ripped out of your chest. The insurance payout was substantial, almost $2 million, but I would have given every penny back to hold her one more time. That's what I believed anyway, until yesterday at the Harris Teeter on Morrison Boulevard. If you're listening right now, help me prove something wrong. My mother said I wouldn't even reach 1,000 subscribers, but I believe stories like this deserve to be heard. Help me show her that these stories matter. I stood there frozen, my mind trying to process what my eyes were seeing. Sarah, my Sarah, wearing jeans I'd never seen before, and a green jacket that wasn't in her closet when I donated all her clothes to Goodwill last month. The man beside her put his hand on her lower back, intimate and familiar, and she leaned into him. They were comfortable together. This wasn't a first date. This was established, routine, real. My legs moved before my brain caught up. I grabbed my cart and followed them from a distance, ducking behind displays, feeling ridiculous and desperate and angry all at once. They shopped like a normal couple. He grabbed bread while she compared prices on coffee. She put vegetables in the cart. He added beer. At the checkout, he paid with a credit card and called her Michelle. The cashier wished them a good evening, told Michelle she loved her new haircut. I followed them to the parking lot, staying 3 cars back, my heart hammering so hard I thought it might break through my ribs. They got into a silver Honda Accord with Virginia plates. I memorized the license number, my hands shaking as I typed it into my phone. Then I followed them. For 45 minutes, I drove behind that Honda, through our town and into the next one over, to a neighborhood I'd never visited. A nice development with tidy lawns and basketball hoops and driveways. They pulled into the garage of a yellow house with white shutters, number 1247 Oakmont Drive. I parked down the street and waited. The lights came on inside. Through the living room window, I watched them move around, putting away groceries probably, living a life. My wife was living a life while I'd been drowning in grief for 6 months, while I'd stood at her graveside and sobbed until my sister had to practically carry me to the car, while I'd slept in our guest room because I couldn't bear to sleep in our bed alone. The rage that hit me then was like nothing I'd ever experienced. It burned through the shock, through the confusion, leaving only white-hot fury. Sarah had faked her death. She'd left me to mourn her while she started over with someone else, took the insurance money, probably half our savings too, before she died. I thought about that hiking trip, the one she insisted on taking alone because she needed to clear her head. She'd been stressed about work, she said, needed time to think. The rangers found her car at the trailhead. They found her backpack near a cliff edge. They found enough blood evidence to declare her dead even though they never recovered a body. I accepted it because why wouldn't I? People don't fake their own deaths, except Sarah had. I drove home in a daze. That night I didn't sleep. I sat at my kitchen table with a bottle of whiskey I didn't drink and my laptop, searching. I found the man first. His name was Marcus Webb, 38, worked as a software engineer for a company in Richmond. No criminal record. Married once before, divorced 3 years ago. I found their wedding registry next. Marcus Webb and Michelle Parker, getting married next month in Savannah, Georgia. The registry was full of expensive items, fancy cookware, high thread count sheets, a honeymoon fund requesting contributions for a trip to Bali. Michelle Parker. Sarah had kept her initials. That detail felt like another slap. Even in creating her new identity, she stayed close enough to her old one to feel comfortable. I dug deeper. Michelle Parker had a driver's license issued 8 months ago in Virginia. She worked remotely as a graphic designer, had a LinkedIn profile with fake references that looked legitimate enough if you didn't dig too deep. She had an Instagram account with pictures of her and Marcus looking happy, hiking together, which would have been funny if it wasn't so twisted, cooking together, at the beach. There was even a post from 5 months ago, right around the time I was having a breakdown at her memorial service, of them at a winery, her hand displaying an engagement ring. I want to tell you I went to the police right then, that I did the right thing, the legal thing, but I didn't. Because as I sat there, looking at pictures of my dead wife smiling with another man, spending money I'd received for her death, I realized the justice system would be too slow, too kind. Sarah had calculated every step of this. She'd planned her death probably for months. She'd stolen from me, from the insurance company, from everyone who'd mourned her. She'd let me suffer while she built a new life. If she wanted to be dead so badly, I'd let her stay dead. But first, she was going to pay. Over the next 2 weeks, I became someone I didn't recognize. I called in sick to work, told my sister I needed space to heal. Then I dedicated every waking hour to investigating Sarah's new life. I created fake social media accounts and joined the same online groups as Michelle Parker. I found out she was active in a book club, that she volunteered at an animal shelter on Saturdays, that she and Marcus had just put an offer on a bigger house because they were talking about starting a family. A family. The same family she'd refused to have with me, saying she wasn't ready, that her career came first, that maybe someday but not now. Apparently, someday had arrived as soon as she had a new identity and a new man. I hired a private investigator, paid him cash to be discreet. He confirmed what I'd already suspected. Sarah had been planning this for over a year. She'd met Marcus online, fallen for him, started her exit strategy. The hiking accident was staged with precision. She'd used pig blood purchased from a butcher 3 towns over. She'd left her phone at the cliff edge, programmed to send me one final text: "The view is beautiful. I love you." She'd walked away from that trail and into a car Marcus had waiting, drove to Virginia, and became someone else. The PI found more. Sarah had slowly drained our joint savings account over 6 months before her death, small withdrawals that didn't raise flags. $20,000 total moved to an account I never knew existed. She'd also taken out a secret credit card in her name and maxed it out on cash advances, knowing she'd never have to pay it back. And the insurance money, the $2 million I'd received and put in a trust because I couldn't stand to touch it, she'd been expecting me to have that. She'd probably planned to somehow get it from me eventually, or maybe she just liked knowing I had blood money. Now here's where the story gets interesting, and I really need you to stick with me because what happened next changed everything. Please hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, because you're not going to believe how this plays out. I spent days figuring out the perfect revenge. It had to be poetic, it had to hurt the way she'd hurt me, and it had to be legal, because I wasn't going to prison for someone who'd already stolen 6 months of my life. The answer came to me at 3 in the morning, staring at their wedding registry. I called the insurance company first, told them I had information about a fraud case. They listened, took notes, told me they'd investigate. I sent them everything. Pictures, the PI's report, Michelle Parker's driver's license photo next to Sarah's old photos. I gave them Marcus's address. The insurance investigator called me back 3 days later and told me they were pursuing criminal charges. Insurance fraud at this level was a federal offense. Sarah was looking at up to 30 years in prison. But I wasn't done. I contacted the Social Security Administration and reported identity fraud. Michelle Parker's Social Security number was fake, which meant Sarah had committed identity theft on top of everything else. More federal charges, more years. I filed a civil suit for emotional distress, for the money she'd stolen, for everything.
I contacted Marcus's employer and anonymously sent them information about his fiance's real identity, implying he might be complicit. I wasn't sure if he knew who she really was, but I didn't care anymore. Then I did something petty, something small but satisfying. I contacted every vendor on their wedding registry and told them the wedding was canceled due to the bride's arrest. I posted in Michelle Parker's book club that she wouldn't be attending any more meetings. I called the animal shelter and told them Michelle Parker had emergency family issues and wouldn't be volunteering. The day the FBI showed up at 1247 Oakmont Drive, I was parked down the street in a rental car. I watched them take her in handcuffs. She was crying, screaming at Marcus that she could explain. He stood in the doorway looking shock-shacked, and I felt a brief moment of sympathy for him before remembering he'd been sleeping in a bed bought with life insurance money meant to compensate for my wife's death.
The local news picked up the story that evening. Woman fakes death, faces federal charges. They used her old photo, the one from our Christmas card 3 years ago where she's wearing that red sweater I bought her. The news anchor called it a shocking case of insurance fraud. They mentioned the grieving husband she'd left behind. That was me, the grieving husband. My phone started ringing. Friends I hadn't talked to in months calling to see if I'd heard, to see if I was okay. My sister drove over and held me while I cried, but these tears were different. These were tears of release, of vindication, of rage finally having somewhere to go. Sarah's lawyer called me 2 days after her arrest. She wanted to talk, he said. She wanted to apologize. I told him to tell her to save it for the judge. He called back an hour later with a different approach. Sarah was willing to return all the money, to testify against Marcus if he was involved, to do whatever it took to reduce her sentence. She wanted me to write a letter to the court asking for leniency. I laughed, actually laughed. Then I told him I'd write a letter all right. I spent that evening composing the most detailed account of the last 6 months of my life that I could manage. Every sleepless night, every panic attack, every time I'd broken down in the grocery store because I saw something she used to like. The cost of therapy I'd needed, the leave from work, the way my students had made sympathy cards, the way her mother had called me weekly, sobbing because she'd lost her daughter, never knowing that daughter was alive and well in Virginia. I sent that letter to the prosecuting attorney, to the judge, to anyone who would read it. I wanted them to understand that this wasn't just fraud, this was torture. This was a woman who'd looked into my eyes every day for 15 years and then decided I was so worthless, so disposable, that she could fake her death and not lose a moment of sleep over what it would do to me. The preliminary hearing was set for 6 weeks after her arrest. I attended, sitting in the back of the courtroom. Sarah was brought in wearing an orange jumpsuit, her hair back to its natural color now, stringy and unwashed. She scanned the room and her eyes found mine. For a moment, we just stared at each other. I saw her mouth form my name, saw tears start to fall. I felt nothing. No sympathy, no love, not even hate anymore. Just a cold, settled satisfaction. Her lawyer argued that she'd been in an abusive marriage, that she'd feared for her life, that faking her death was the only way out. I almost stood up and screamed. Abusive? I'd never raised my voice to her, never laid a hand on her. The worst fight we'd ever had was about whether to get a dog. But her lawyer painted this picture of a terrified woman escaping a monster, and I sat there wondering how I'd never seen this capacity for lies in all our years together. The prosecutor tore that defense apart. He presented evidence of Sarah's year-long affair with Marcus. He showed bank statements proving she'd systematically stolen money. He played the recording of her final text to me, the manufactured goodbye from a woman who was, at that moment, driving away from her old life. He asked her directly, if you feared your husband, why did you send him a loving text? Why did you leave him $2 million in insurance money? Why didn't you just file for divorce? She had no answer. Her lawyer called for a recess. During that recess, Sarah's mother approached me in the hallway. Linda, a woman who'd been like a second mother to me, who'd cried on my shoulder at the funeral, who'd held my hand during the burial. She looked 10 years older now, broken by the double grief of losing her daughter and then finding out that loss had been a lie.
"Did you know?" she asked me. "Did you have any idea she was capable of this?" I shook my head. I thought I knew her better than anyone. I was wrong. Linda started crying. "I raised her better than this. I don't understand how she became this person." I didn't have an answer for her. I still don't. Maybe Sarah had always been capable of this, and I'd just never seen it. Maybe something had changed in her, broken, twisted. Or maybe the Sarah I'd loved had never really existed at all, had always been a performance she got tired of maintaining. The trial was set for 4 months later, but it never got that far. Sarah's lawyer worked out a plea deal. She'd plead guilty to insurance fraud, identity theft, and filing false police reports. In exchange for her cooperation and the return of all stolen money, she'd serve 12 years in federal prison with the possibility of parole after 8. 12 years. It wasn't enough. It would never be enough. But it was something. It was public acknowledgement that what she'd done was wrong, criminal, unforgivable. Before her sentencing, Sarah requested one final meeting with me. Her lawyer said she wanted closure, whatever that meant. I almost said no. What could she possibly say that would matter now? But I agreed, curious despite myself, about what excuse she'd offer, what explanation could possibly make sense of any of this.
We met in a small room at the detention center, a guard stationed outside. Sarah sat across from me, handcuffed, looking small and afraid. This was the woman I'd promised to love forever, the woman I'd built a life with. She looked like a stranger. "Daniel?" she started, her voice cracking. "I'm so sorry." I didn't respond, just stared at her, waiting. "I was lost," she continued. "We'd been together since we were kids. I didn't know who I was without you. I felt trapped, suffocated. When I met Marcus, he made me feel new, exciting. I know that's not an excuse. I know I should have just asked for a divorce. But I was scared of hurting you, scared of what people would think, scared of starting over at 40. So instead, you let me think you were dead," I said flatly. "You let me grieve. You let me suffer. Because that was easier than having a difficult conversation?" She flinched. "I thought it would be easier for you too. You'd get the insurance money. You'd move on eventually. You'd remember me as someone you loved, not someone who left you." The delusion was breathtaking. Easier? Sarah, I couldn't get out of bed for 3 months. I couldn't eat. I couldn't work. Your mother had to be hospitalized for depression. Your friends mourned you. And you thought that was easier than divorce? "I wasn't thinking clearly," she whispered. "I know that now. I was selfish and cruel and stupid. If I could take it back." "But you can't." I leaned forward. "You made your choices. You planned this for a year. You bought pig blood. You programmed that final text. You walked away and didn't look back. You don't get to say you weren't thinking clearly. You thought it through every step of the way." She was crying now, mascara running down her face. "I do love you, Daniel. I never stopped loving you. I loved myself more. I loved the idea of a new life more." "That's not love," I told her. "Love doesn't fake its own death. Love doesn't let someone suffer just to avoid an uncomfortable conversation. What you did to me, to everyone who cared about you, that's not love. That's not even hate. That's just nothing. You felt nothing for me. That's the truth, isn't it?" She couldn't look at me. That was answer enough. I stood up. "I hope 12 years gives you time to figure out who you really are. Because the woman I married, the woman I loved, she wasn't real. She was just another performance, and when you got tired of performing, you killed her off." "Daniel, please." "Goodbye, Sarah." I walked out of that room and didn't look back. The guard had to tell Sarah that our time was up because she just sat there, crying, calling my name. 2 weeks later, I attended her sentencing. The judge read through the charges, the plea agreement, the impact statements. Then he looked at Sarah and said, "Mrs. Cooper, what you did was not just illegal,
It was morally reprehensible. You caused immeasurable pain to people who loved you, all to serve your own selfish desires. You could have gotten a divorce. Instead, you chose to commit multiple federal crimes, to defraud an insurance company, to waste law enforcement resources. Your actions show a profound lack of empathy and a willingness to hurt others for your own benefit. He sentenced her to 12 years, ordered her to pay full restitution to the insurance company, and added 5 years probation after her release. Sarah's shoulders shook as the reality settled in. She'd be almost 55 when she got out. Her new life with Marcus, her plans for a family, her fresh start, all of it was gone. Marcus had broken off their engagement, by the way. Turns out he didn't know she was married or that she'd faked her death. He testified against her in exchange for immunity, saying she'd told him she was a widow from Virginia who'd moved to start over after her husband's death. Another lie in a web of lies. After the sentencing, I went home to the house Sarah and I had bought together. I walked through rooms full of memories that felt tainted now. Every happy moment, every anniversary, every quiet Sunday morning, all of it felt like a lie. She'd been planning her exit while we were planning our future. She'd been stealing money while I was talking about retirement. She'd been creating Michelle Parker while I was just being Daniel, her husband, the man who loved her. I put the house on the market that week. I couldn't live there anymore. Couldn't sleep in a bed we'd shared. Couldn't cook in a kitchen where she'd pretended to be happy. I donated everything that reminded me of her. Clothes I'd somehow missed the first time, books, photos, our wedding album. All of it went to charity or the trash. The house sold quickly. I used the money to buy a small condo in Asheville, 3 hours away from everything that reminded me of Sarah. I requested a transfer at work and got a position at a high school in my new city. I started seeing a therapist, a kind woman named Dr. Patterson, who helped me understand that Sarah's betrayal wasn't a reflection of my worth, that some people are just broken in ways we can't fix or even understand.
It's been 8 months since I saw Sarah at that grocery store. The legal process is over. The insurance company got their money back, plus penalties. Sarah is in prison. Marcus moved back to Richmond and deleted all his social media. Linda calls me sometimes, apologizing for her daughter, as if Sarah's choices were somehow her fault. I tell her they're not. We're both victims of Sarah's selfishness. People ask me if I'm dating again. I'm not ready. Maybe I never will be. How do you trust someone after your wife of 15 years fakes her death to be with someone else? How do you believe in love when it was all a performance? I don't have those answers yet. But here's what I do know. I got my revenge. Not the violent, destructive kind, the legal kind. The kind that will follow Sarah for the rest of her life. She'll be a convicted felon. She'll serve 12 years in prison. When she gets out, she'll have to check a box on every job application, every apartment rental form. She'll have to explain what she did, over and over again. Her story made national news. Her face is online forever, attached to articles about insurance fraud and fake deaths. Michelle Parker is dead, really dead this time. Sarah Cooper is in prison, and I'm free. Free from the lies, from the performance, from the woman who valued her own comfort over my grief. It's not the ending I wanted when I married her, but it's the ending she earned. So if you're out there thinking about faking your death, about running away from your problems, about letting the people who love you suffer so you can start over, remember this story. Remember that the truth always comes out. Remember that grocery stores exist, and people have eyes, and private investigators take cash. Remember that some of us will burn the whole world down to get justice. And most importantly, remember that revenge doesn't have to be violent to be complete. Sometimes the best revenge is just making sure the person who hurt you faces the full consequences of their actions. Sarah wanted to be dead. Now she gets to spend 12 years wishing she actually was. That's justice. That's revenge. And that's the end of my story. If this story moved you, please hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss future stories. Drop a comment below and tell me where you're watching from.
I love seeing how these stories reach people across the world. We've got incredible viewers from the US, the Philippines, Canada, and especially New York, who've been showing massive support. And honestly, knowing that people from different corners of the globe connect with these real experiences makes sharing them worthwhile. Your comments and locations help me understand what resonates with you, and it builds this amazing community of people who believe in justice and truth. So, seriously, where are you watching from? Let me know in the comments, and let's keep this conversation going. Thanks for listening to my story. And remember, the truth always finds its way to the surface.